I am an artist, an entrepreneur, an educator, and I specifically work in the theater arts and film industry. The four cornerstones of who I am probably would be faith, family, culture, and art. These are all things that are deeply connected to who I am as a woman, as an artist, and how I create conversations and safe spaces in my community. My role models growing up definitely was my mom. My mom is an inspiration to me, just like all moms are. She really provided a foundation for me to learn the arts, to express myself, to be who I am, and really taught me about excellence no matter what it was that I was doing. So definitely my mom. And then, artists like Felicia Rashad, Ruby Dee, Zora Neale Hurston, some of the OGs in theater and literature. These were just some of my role models. I think growing up, learning about the arts and entertainment industry in college and traditionally through school, and then actually going through, I'll pause.
No, you're fine.
Oh, it's okay? Okay, I'll say it again. I think, good. I think growing up, learning the arts and being in the entertainment industry, there's always this need to want to box artists in just so we kind of stay on a path. You know, it's a very non-traditional career path. So I think schools especially try to mold you into just being an actor or being a writer or just doing one thing. But I think as I've grown up, I've tapped more into who I am as an artist, as a storyteller, because I feel very comfortable now no matter what medium I'm working in. So yes, there have been people who've tried to box me in just to be one thing, but I think the more I get closer to what my artistry is, I realize I can write, I can direct, I can produce, I can perform, and that's just part of what my makeup is. My body is so important to my craft, and I think when you are aware of that as an artist, or really anything that you do, if you need to use your body, you pay much more attention to it. So for me, I have a regiment in the gym. So I work out 3 to 4 times a week, maybe more than that, depending on if I'm training for a specific project. But then I also have to balance that out with, just self-care. So to me, I think self-care looks very different for a lot of people. But for me, it means, my nutrition. It means, taking walks to unplug, getting off of social media. It sometimes means, going to bed early, reading more, spending time with family. So definitely self-care practices, nutrition, healthy lifestyle, working out and staying active. In my play, Girls, 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 I actually created it based off of, my own experiences as, a woman of color, African-American, Caribbean woman, and just how I saw the world. And literally all the characters were inspired by real people that I met, either in person or things that I saw in the industry. And I wanted to connect that. I wanted to relate my perspective to young people and give us a voice so we can have a space to address some of these conversations about how the media affects us and what we can do about it, not just have a dialogue, but also create some action towards it. So that play specifically is just a very personal story for me, where I can show my identity but also engage with youth as well. I think in the beginning when I was creating my business, which really was my first play, I think sometimes people get so tied up in thinking I got to have a business plan, I got to have all of these things done before I create my business. But for me, it was, I saw a problem, in my specific industry, and I wanted to create something that mattered, that I just went ahead and did it. And I learned how to navigate, setting up the business, getting my team together, my accountants, my lawyers, getting all the paperwork done, all the things that I wasn't so acclimated to. But that actually came through the creation process. So just getting out there, doing it, failing, messing up, figuring it out. And I think, in my workshop, I'm trying to get people to see that it's not going to be the same for everybody, that you have to do what you're good at first, and the things that you're not good at, you have to find those people to build with you. So in my experience, it really was just going out, making the product, because that's my expertise, creating that project, that play, and then figuring out, oh yeah, I need to start my own company, I need to get these people together to help build it up and sustain it. For me, finding those resources in the early stage of my career and my business really was just tapping into my own community and waking up to the people that was around me. And I think, everything from, I had friends who were accountants, I had friends who were, videographers, designers, creative people that could assist me, who were literally just my friends. So the first part was just tapping into the people who I knew already. And the more that I created work and sustained it and was consistent, and I think that's important. When you're creating your business, you have to stay consistent, you have to be professional, and people are attracted to that. So one thing it is to, actually go out there and learn about the resources, especially for women business owners. There's so many free resources out there for us. You have to do the research, you have to connect with people, you have to be working, you have to be diligent about what it is you're doing. So some of those things I talk about in the workshop, you gotta get to work. It's not, someone can give you all of these free resources, but if you're not tapping into the actual work and following up, I think follow-up is one of the most important things. If I could reiterate that, there's so many people that you may meet a great person to network with, but you don't follow up with, and you've just lost that connection. So there are a lot of great resources out there, but you really just got to put that work and that effort in. When I became an expert in my field, honestly, I think that I'm always growing. I'm always learning. About a year ago, I met Ava DuVernay, the filmmaker, and she just blew my mind, because someone like her, it's like, I want to model my career similar to someone like that, who has her own company and creates her own projects, and is really a self-made woman. But I guess, once I started developing my second piece, Callaloo, as a writer and a director, and I started hiring more actors where I could train them, it kind of clicked for me. And that was about 3 years ago. So I had written a series of books and plays and directed short films and episodics. And a lot of it was just by failing, figuring it out, getting my team together. But I'd say a couple years ago, I felt very comfortable with, okay, when you can train somebody, you can teach someone, I think that's when you're an expert at what it is that you do. But, obviously I'm still growing, and it's kind of a never-ending journey, I think. Do I relinquish control? I think as a director, I've learned to be in control, but also how to delegate and how to manage people, because to me, it's not being in control of everything that's happening, but it's about having a vision and getting the right people in the room who can excel and make that vision come to life. So for me, it's just, I always want to assemble the great team and then delegate, what is this person good at? How do I encourage that person to be great at that one thing? And then try to tap into that, tap into people's energies. So maybe I'm a little bit of a control freak, but I don't think I micromanage. I want everybody on my team to excel at what they're doing so the entire project can, be excellent. How I cultivate partnerships really is a balance of being authentic, being my authentic self, and then understanding what it is that the partner needs, right? Because I think it's a relationship that you're building. So besides my production company, I have a nonprofit, so I work a lot. And it's very important to understand, what it is that a community organization who may not have the funding, but they have the spirit there, what they can give. So I think being authentic and knowing what it is that I need, either as an individual artist or as a director for my companies, I need to be clear about that and clear about boundaries, what we can give and take, but also understand what it is that my partner needs for them to sustain. So definitely it's a relationship, right? It's a conversation that you have to have, and it takes time to figure out what that flow is. How I sustained myself as an artist in the beginning was a struggle because I was wearing mostly my artist hat. And I think as you begin to create your own work and tap into the business side of yourself, you have to think about, how is my art going to be commercially sold, right? And I think that's a scary thing for a lot of artists to, get out of our passion and move more into the business side of it. So in the beginning, I was working 5 or 6 jobs. I was always tired. I wasn't able to do the things that I wanted to do, but I also think I was getting out of that box of thinking, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. So the minute I said, okay, let me write my own thing, let me produce my own show, that's where I stepped more into my power, and I started realizing what these other companies and these other artists who were doing similar things, how much they were making. So once I really started to look around and see, how the industry worked more, and really analyzed it, I was able to, quit those other jobs and just focus my energy, because I think the more that you focus on what are the things that you really want, then you start to see all those opportunities come to you. So, a big part of it is fear. And I talk about that in my workshop. What is the thing that's holding you back from doing what you want to do? And 9 times out of 10, it's you're just afraid to do it. Once you get past that fear, it's like, okay, now I'm going to charge what I want to charge. Now I can provide, the products that I keep saying I want to give. So it was a balancing act, really, in the beginning. But once I got into that mindset, it was unstoppable. How I put a price on my art has a lot to do with what community I'm serving. Because I am also a community artist, I'm also aware of, what that rate looks like, whether I'm serving schools or what types of schools, or a community center versus a more commercial endeavor. So through mentors, through talking to people, asking around, just acclimating myself a little bit more to what the standard is, depending on the audience I'm serving. So I gave that story in my workshop, how I started off just charging a couple $100s for my production, my play, when I first started, and then a year or so later I was charging triple that, quadruple that, and that was only because I was starting to see what my competitors were charging, and I began to value myself differently. So I think, when you think about rates and how much you charge, you have to think about how you value yourself and the amount of time it takes to create excellent work. I would describe my ethnicity as a Caribbean African American woman. I'm a Washingtonian, proud native Washingtonian, and my identity is really important to my work. It allows me to be flexible with my characters, with my storylines, culture and travel. Has been a huge part of my life. So definitely, just tapping into those sides of me, my culture, my gender, my age. So all of these stories, all this work that I create, it has so much to do with really who I am as a Caribbean African American woman from DC, from the city, of millennial. So all of that work is a reflection of just who I am. DC, okay. Being in DC and being from DC has been so instrumental in creating my work, operating my businesses, and maintaining it and sustaining it, mostly because, one, DC is such a cultural city. There's so many different ethnic groups. It's Chocolate City. It still is. I still claim that. So just coming from a place that's so community-oriented, it's so culturally rich, has been and still is so important for me, and having great elders and a foundation to create work and partner with folks who believe in me. So I think when you look out into the larger industry, you really start to see that this is how successful businesses start, just by a group of people believing in you, having a family, having community, and DC has been great for that. And as well as all of the business opportunities, the entrepreneurship training and innovation, and the city actually taking, major steps to support young artists and entrepreneurs.